Very nice.
Just cut that. Just went blank.
Who are you?
I forgot who I was. Okay. I'm Jean Moshofsky-Butler. I started Cacophony, and this is a story about an event, very early event we did for Cacophony.
I'm Elaine Affronti. I had this idea for an event for a memorial for our friend Garry Warren, who died in 1983. And this was 1986, and although we had gathered and had a bonfire close in time to his passing, there was nothing really that was of a caliber that really served to honor his memory. Garry Warren was one of the original urban adventurers, one of a kind, absolutely brilliant in investigating the edge, right up to the edge. He'd take people to the edge in so many ways.
And started Suicide Club.
Yeah. I had seen a film called My Dinner with Andre. This is a strange little movie in which Wally Shawn interviews Andre Gregory over dinner. And Andre Gregory tells a story in there. He describes an event that he arranged, and it was the basis for this event.
And our event, the way we described it, was extremely mysterious. We didn't actually tell anybody what was going to happen. We just said it was something to do with Garry and kind of a memorial to him in a sense. And we told people to bring, to wear black and to have a set of white clothing, and to send us a postcard with what they felt they were most proud of. And that was pretty much all they got from us, and about 15 people signed up.
It was Halloween night, remarkably warm, and we had people
law firm.
meet at a law firm where I had access to the conference room. We announced that people had to write their wills, and each person had to compose their will and dispose of all their worldly belongings to prepare for this event. I was dressed as a lawyer. I am a lawyer, but I was dressed as a lawyer. And one by one, I took each person and had a conference with them, reviewed their will, and made sure it conformed with California law. So there are people who still have that handwritten will as their true document for disposing of their goods.
And then when you finished with that, when we finished with that, everyone was blindfolded, and they were brought into 3 waiting cars and driven across the Golden Gate Bridge into the Marin Headlands. And what happened then? They got met at the top of the gate?
I reserved Kirby Cove. This is at that time it was for groups, so I made up a group and reserved the campground. And Kirby Cove is right in the Marin Headlands. You come up on a metal bar gate. We parked the cars there. We unblindfolded each participant.
One at a time? One at a time.
Brought them one at a time out of the cars. They were wearing their black clothing. They carried a backpack with their white clothing. They were sent down a road
very
alone,
long
without
steep road.
A flashlight.
It was dark. It's very long. It's even long if you're driving.
It's about a 15-minute walk in the dark.
Yeah. And then they were met at the bottom by a young man who then re-blindfolded them, re-blindfolded them, and then led them by hand across kind of rough terrain to a waiting area.
Those we called the ferrymen. There were 2 guys who were my son and his friend Pablo. We called them the ferrymen. And the ferrymen took them across the river Styx.
Yes. And then each participant all this happened. The biggest problem we had was that it was like everybody had to be done one at a time. Nothing could be done all at once. But each participant was then taken into a tent, and that's where they were undressed by the undertaker, who was inside the tent. They were washed with warm water. They were then wrapped with a shroud. And the undertaker then took a Polaroid picture of them, and then they were put in the coffin.
We had actually bought real coffins from the cheapest low-end coffins we could find, but they were real, from a coffin factory right here in this Bayview area, over on Quint Street, if you're ever looking for a coffin dealer.
Yeah, very good to have. They came in handy for storage of things later. So then the participant was then placed inside the coffin, and we had 4 French guys that were constantly complaining about the weight, and eventually I think they went on strike, but they would then carry the coffin into a little makeshift chapel that was inside the bunker in Kirby Cove, which we had lined with luminarias. So it was all very, eerie and lovely. And we had really ghastly organ music, hokey organ music that was like, beautiful dreamer, that kind of stuff.
No singing though, just...
Yeah, it was just the organ music. And this friend of ours that had a really deep, very sonorous voice and was just perfect as the minister for all this. He had the sermon for this person, and he used the information that they had sent with postcards. And in the postcards, they would talk about the things they were proud of and their achievements and stuff, and he would kind of work that in, and he was really good at being extemporaneous. So he worked in a whole thing where it was just all about their life and everything else. And then...
Well, at this point in time, the coffin had been opened so the deceased could hear their own eulogy.
Yes.
At that point, the coffin was closed and latched.
We did want to dig holes for the coffin. Our original plan was to have a big deep hole that we would then lower the coffin into, and then we'd pull it out. But it was a little impractical, so unfortunately we didn't do that. We just had to stick with the latching.
And then the grumbling Frenchman came and picked up the coffin and took it into a quiet area, a separate quiet area, where we took shovelfuls of dirt
And just kind of...
so they could hear the clods of dirt fall on their coffin. And then we left them in the dark in their coffin for 20 minutes.
Which, of course, they didn't know how long they were going to be there. They just... So there were a few claustrophobic people that were somewhat distressed by this, this fact. And then the Angel of Death, which was Steve Mobia.
He just left. I
Yeah.
saw the Angel of Death.
Yes, the Angel of Death was just here. The Angel of Death then opened the coffin and then gave them their white clothes, and then they were permitted to dress, and then he took them through, there was this long sewer, that kind of big sewer, what was it called? A storm drain. Excuse me, it wasn't a sewer. Storm drain that led out onto the beach. And when you got out to the beach, there was this beautiful view of Golden Gate Bridge and the city lights and everything. And he would lead them out there where they were then left to contemplate their life and the deepness and spirituality of it all, or something.
And their resurrection.
And their resurrection. Yes, exactly.
So there were 3 people who were personal friends of mine who had never participated in any event before that time. And of the people who were there and had previous experience with events, they kind of wrote it out, save for one person who
Didn't.
totally freaked out,
Didn't.
got up and left and walked
Yeah.
out of Kirby Cove.
Did he walk out?
Yeah.
He really did walk out? Oh, I thought he waited.
No, he walked out.
Why? He actually walked out. Okay. That's news.
And some people were very deeply moved. There were people who cried all through their eulogy. There were people who cried when they were resurrected and came to life and looked at the beautiful world that we live in.
And then we had a big potluck and a bonfire. And yeah, I mean, people were very impressed by it, I guess. We didn't really think about it at the time, though.
Well, I had this very strong motivation to compose an event that would honor Garry, and I feel like we did.